what brought me back to LeGrand is really wanting to hear more of folks' concerns, what people are struggling with right now, and then also to talk about some of the ideas and options moving forward. I mean, some of the things that I think that I've heard that people are very concerned about, and I'm concerned about as well, is our healthcare system. There's been a lot of talk, and take the politics out for a moment, there's been a lot of talk about essentially ditching the ACA, the system we have in place now. And yes, it's an imperfect system, it needs to be improved. But if we completely repeal the Affordable Care Act, 1 in 5 folks in our district will lose their health care. So, and it's the number, and again, this is just within our district, our congressional district, is 134,500 people would lose their health care if we just ditch the ACA. So yes, we need to improve it, but we have to move forward. We can't move backwards on health care. The other big thing, of course, is economic development. And so I've talked a long time about investing in our infrastructure, and I talk about our physical infrastructure, things like our water and systems, broadband access, so that we have a competitive advantage with our urban areas. Housing is a huge issue throughout our district. Also our social infrastructure, and that includes everything from healthcare and education, and also safety. One of the things that a lot of folks don't realize is that the highest suicide rates in the states right now are amongst farmers and ranchers. And so we're not doing what we need to do. And so it's really stepping up and helping to address those concerns. That's the job at hand. And then lastly is just getting beyond the divisiveness and getting beyond some of the nastiness in politics and also some of the policies of the direction our country's going. I believe in people before party, and it's about supporting decision makers when they're doing a good job, and it's also about calling them out when they're hurting people. And there's some things going on right now that don't sit well with anyone. And so it's being able to stand up and say, that's not who we are. Let's do this right. I mean, we have we have a kind of a moderate approach to things and an independent thinking, but let's also do this right. Do it in a way we can be proud. So a rural Democrat is different from an urban Democrat. And one of the things that I think the Democratic Party has really fallen short on in recent years is really focusing on urban areas. I grew up bucking hay. My dad hunted to put food on the table. I rode horses growing up. It was those kind of experiences, and really seeing the land and seeing folks really work hard and those values of just working hard and taking care of your family. And so for me, it actually really transcends political party. It's really about that connected to rural areas, respect for traditions. My wife's family's been ranching in Eastern Oregon, and that's over in the Skinners from Jordan Valley since pre-statehood. And so that connection, that sense of tradition, that sense of stewardship of the land, that's something that is very near and dear to my heart. And so, I was raised by people I admire and respect, and they're Democrats. My Republican friends say the same reason why they're Republican, or folks who are, unaffiliated because they think both parties are kind of getting it a little bit wrong. But again, my criticism of Democrats traditionally is they've been focused on urban areas. Republicans have been focused on big business and corporations, tax giveaways and things like that. We really haven't had a representative or folks who are willing to step up and really focus on the needs of rural communities. And that's really what I want to do. Yeah, so this bridging of the urban and rural areas, I think that's the advantage of having the D after my name, because then there's that sense of connection to a lot of the folks who are in decision-making roles in urban areas. And so and I've found, I've been talking about the needs of rural areas, rural communities for the past year, and I've really actually seen the Democratic Party of Oregon spend a lot more time and focus on rural communities, which I think is critically important because it's true for both parties. I mean, focus on the needs of folks on the ground and focus on the needs of rural communities that have been overlooked for a long time. Our economies are struggling. The high rates of depression, the high rates of suicide. These are things that are symptoms of the lack of focus and attention on areas. And I'm also very much, my policy is government needs to know when to help out, when to get out of the way. I'm not talking about overstepping or government doing everything. But government can help out, either creating incentives or opportunities and programs for folks to step up and kind of take the reins of their life. And I really think that's when government's at its best, to help out a bit, create some incentives for the good paying jobs we need in our rural communities, and then kind of getting out of the way so families can live their lives. Well, I guess, my focus on getting elected is to provide the resources and provide some of the opportunities for our rural communities. I mean, I think the urban-rural connection and divide is being taken care of or being addressed on kind of a community-by-community basis. I know Eastern Oregon University is starting to partner with Portland State University to develop that kind of cross-experience between urban-rural divide. That kind of thing is very important. But also, what my job would be is just making sure that the needs of rural communities are addressed. So make sure we have the resources in place for making sure healthcare, folks have access to healthcare. Before the ACA, a lot of the folks in rural communities who did not have someone with a town job did not have access to healthcare. And so it's making sure we have a system in place that provides access to physical and mental health care for everyone, that manages costs, which is very important, which provides a quality of care, and which also provides care for the caregiver. And those are the 4 ideas around health care. And there's models out there that we can use to not be paying more than we're paying, potentially be paying less, but make sure everyone has access to it. So then that goes away as a worry for businesses to cover, for government to cover, for families to make sure those resources are available. And then we look at infrastructure development. We look at programs like making sure there's broadband access in our rural communities, because that helps to develop it helps in economic development. It also, net neutrality is really important, and I know this is a topic right now, but if you want to understand net neutrality, Google, and you need internet to do this, but Google the Burger King commercial on net neutrality. It's a real fun little video that Burger King put together to show what net neutrality is like. And all it is about creating a level playing field. I want the folks here in La Grande to have equal access and be on the level playing field with folks in Silicon Valley. Net neutrality will establish that, and that's why that's so important. But also renewable energy, and I know that's, I'm not talking about a power line through a community that's a conduit that's just, moving someone else's electricity from one place to another. But I'm talking about local, on-site, better utilizing our natural resources to help our power grid. On-site, essentially, utility. Our transportation system is always important for moving our goods and services, for also getting access to things. So providing that resource. Housing is a huge issue throughout our district. And there's public-private partnerships that can be developed. Either the federal government can either be providing incentives or providing some funding to get those things going. Stewardship of our public lands and natural resources. Again, I think at the federal level, there should be established policies and then resources provided so folks on the ground can decide how to accomplish those big picture policies, but folks who actually know the land. That's where those decisions should be made. And then on social infrastructure, again, there's the healthcare piece and education. So programs like, I think we should have an exchange of public service for college education or trade school. That's an investment in our young folks. It provides them the opportunity to get access to the education they need to help with future economic development. And it's establishing those resources, and then again, getting out of the way so communities and families can figure out how to develop their businesses and kind of run their own lives. It's providing that framework and that structure so that communities can thrive. And in the 50s, there was this crazy idea of developing an interstate transportation network, our roads. When you talk about broadband access, we are in the information age, and so all that is an interstate for the information. Now, net neutrality, again, is important because everyone should have access to that interstate, but it's the interstate it's the interstate of information and not just vehicles anymore. And this is the information age that we're in. So it makes sense that there's an involvement and an establishment of a level playing field to keep it fair. Again, we want startup businesses to have the same access as the big, powerful corporations, because that's where the imbalances come in, and that's really some of the problems we're having in Washington, D.C. right now. There's favoritism to who gives you the most money. There's favoritism to these big, powerful corporations. We saw that in the tax bill, the change to the tax law last December, where there were huge giveaways, permanent giveaways to big business and corporations and the wealthy. And sure, the rest of us got a little bump this year. That was a politically smart thing to do. But in the next couple of years, our taxes are going to go through the roof. Within 10 years, they're going to be 27% above what they were last year. And we're paying that, and we're taking on a $1.5 trillion debt from that deal. That's not fair. Don't burden us with giveaways to corporations. The argument was the same old argument we've heard before, trickle down. It's trickle on, it's not trickle down. And that's been giveaways to shareholders. So we've learned that lesson already. Let's not go back and have to relearn that lesson again. But we shouldn't be taking money off out of the pockets of farmers and ranchers and college students to have giveaways for big corporations. I mean, that's not fair. That's not fair. And then big pharma, we have an opioid crisis. And I'm delighted that our representative is finally focused on this. In the time he's been in office, in the 20 years he's been in office, 4,500 Oregonians have died from opioid overdose. I wrote about this in an op-ed piece in January, and just in the last couple months, he started to pay it a lot of attention. That's good. That's good. But we also have to make sure it's not just another giveaway to big pharma. So our current representative gets the most money from big pharma of anyone else in Congress. Millions of dollars. More than even the Speaker of the House. He gets more money. So I've been seeing billboards around that say he works for us. And that's true. He works for the folks who paid for those billboards, and that's big pharma, and those are major corporations. And that's just, we have to pull this back. This election is going to be about people versus big money. And no disrespect for the individual I'm running against. He used to be that guy. He got caught up in the political machine of Washington, D.C., and he's just not that guy anymore. So I've actually made a pledge already that if I'm elected, I will have a town hall in every county every year. That's my commitment, because you got to show up, listen to what folks are excited about, are worried about, and if people don't like your vote on something, be tough enough to show up and look someone in the eye and hear them out. Because people are only upset if it's hurting them or hurting their families. And if you're representing someone, you got to show up, you got to do that. And people have heard that, and people have been responsive to that. You mentioned some of the communities, Fossil, for example. One of the former mayors of Fossil has endorsed my campaign. So we've got this support coming up across party lines, Republican, Democrat, Independent, who are saying, yeah, this is the direction we need to go. And it's no disrespect on a history of service for our current representative, but it is a wake-up call saying our country's not headed in a good direction. And there was a promise in the last cycle that there would be change, and we haven't seen that change, and it's been more of the same. And so what we really need right now is a shot in the arm and a change from that direction, and someone who is not part of the infrastructure, because now it's a different use of infrastructure, but not part of the political infrastructure, because that political infrastructure is not serving us. It's serving big business, it's serving big corporations, it's serving big pharma. Big pharma has been the driver of the opioid crisis. And so now you have someone who's a self-proclaimed champion of addressing the opioid crisis, who's also getting more money than anyone else from the same people who are driving that crisis. It doesn't pass the sniff test. First of all, if people want more information, please check out my website. It's jamiefororegon.com. So it's JAMIEFOR. I didn't go with the number, I went for the word. jamiefororegon.com. So please check that out. Also, there's ways to contact us through a website. So if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, if we're missing something, send me an email and send us some information or send us some updates. That's really helpful, because it's all about ear to the ground, listening, understanding the concerns and needs of folks throughout the district and, frankly, across the political divide. Again, I'll say I like to talk about our Oregon values, because regardless of political affiliation, we all care about our families, we all care about our communities, and those are the things that bring us together. Part of what I've been seeing across the district, and part of what I've been trying to talk to people about, is this phenomenal tradition we have already of being good neighbors, being decent to each other, sitting down together around the table and figuring out how to overcome challenges and solutions. So a lot of my professional background's in water, and we have water issues throughout the district. A very famous water conflict in Klamath Falls. We have needs up in Umatilla County. In Burns, it's the dropping groundwater table. And I've met with folks and sat around and worked on some of those projects, sat around the table with folks who come together across the political divide to try to figure out the solutions for going forward. And when a community comes up with a solution, it's the obligation, I believe, of the representative, if it's a fair and equitable solution, to support it. And another failure of leadership was in Klamath when there was an agreement that the farmers and the ranchers and the tribes and the community groups and the fishermen all came together and crafted the Klamath Basin Restoration Agreement. And our current representative would not support it. And so it died in Congress. And so now folks are back to the table, there's conflict again, and there's drought. And so people are struggling again. So respect local wisdom, show up and listen, respect the wisdom on the ground, but figure out what resources are needed for a community and work very hard to make sure those resources are provided. Because folks in the local community are the experts in their communities. And so how do we work together to address their needs and to make sure they get what they need?